I mentioned earlier that the symphony is cast in 4 movements, and for all of the untraditional things that go on in this music, its basic architecture is actually quite traditional and classical. The standard layout of a classical symphony up until that point is a first movement in generally fast tempo, a scherzo or a minuet back in Haydn's time, a slow movement, and a finale. In the case of Mahler's Sixth Symphony, there's a little bit of confusion as to what happens after the first movement. Mahler's original plan and the first performances that he conducted back in 1906 called for the second movement to be a scherzo, followed by a slow movement. Mahler actually reversed the order after those first performances, deciding for whatever reasons that the slow movement will be better placed after the first movement. So there's been a little bit of controversy over the years, and some conductors elect to play the scherzo after the first movement, some elect to go to the slow movement. Personally, I choose to do the scherzo. So it's this music that we're going to hear now. You'll notice when I play you the beginning that it sounds quite familiar because it starts out in the timpani and low strings with another kind of treading, heavy rhythm. But this one, instead of going in 4 beats in a bar, goes with 3 beats in a bar. And on top of it, we have a kind of macabre dance. Scherzo is normally a light and jocular movement, but Mahler's sense of humor here is very sardonic and ironic. And he gives us a dance of sorts, but it's kind of more a dance of death in a way. There's a skeletal rattling in the presence of a xylophone in the midst of all this. And so a sense of gallows humor pervades the main part of this movement. Clearly, we need a little bit of relief from the grim humor of the main part of the scherzo. And Mahler gives us it in the form of a trio, a second section that is in marked contrast to the first section. And he marks it to be played with a rather unusual adjective, and that translates from German as old-fashioned. It's the only instance that I've ever come across in anybody's score of being asked to play in an old-fashioned way. And it starts out with a quaint theme on the oboe and taken up by the strings. And it's really rather charming and slightly quirky. But there's actually a subversive undercurrent because it changes meter almost every bar. 1 minute there'll be 4 beats in the bar, the next bar there will be 3, the next bar 6, then 4, then 2 bars of 4, then 3. It never stays the same. So if you try and count along by going 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll never feel comfortable. So even with this rather charming and old-fashioned music, there's a spirit of unrest beneath the surface, that it's constantly in a state of wrong-footing you. So the rest of this movement follows a relatively regular course. The demonic music of the scherzo comes back for a second appearance, as does the old-fashioned music of the trio. The movement ends, however, in a rather strange way of disintegration. It's almost like a rag doll that has lost its stuffing. Fragments of both the scherzo music and the trio music come back, but they're somehow or other incomplete, and there's just a sense that the whole thing is winding down, and it ends with just a disembodied thud on the timpani. It's a very effective and spooky end to the movement.